this morning. They're excellent in terms of an event. It's great to be able to be here and share your experience with us, and we're very much listening. And I think the work that NBCO are doing in terms of having to focus today on inspections is really, really important. So I'm going to probably take a step back from that and maybe just give a kind of a broad bit of clarity of why we got to this place, and maybe why I suppose it's important that inspections do take place, and the legacy failures of the past that have been, I suppose we still live in the shadow of those legacy issues. There's a lot of change that's happening, and this space is not static in terms of the improvements that need to be made, but in general, something that cannot be done by regulators alone. It needs the enforcement authorities, it needs the industry as well to work in collaboration with each other to support that culture of compliance. In the context of kind of setting out the broad legislative framework that building control authorities operate under, we're all very familiar with the works that happen, as a result of building regulations, building control regulations, the TGDs, the code of practice. But on the right-hand side, we also have the implementation of European legislation, which is fundamental to changing a European-wide approach to dealing with our energy performance of buildings. And in some instances, they will have their own separate guidance associated with them. And the yellow boxes are generally the main areas of responsibility solely for the 31 local authorities, and there's a shared responsibility for the market surveillance of construction products, and supported by the NBCO, and that cross-link communication between all of the work to do with our training groups, inspection groups, regional meetings, brings everyone together to get a coherent delivery of building control in Ireland. Yeah, so I suppose like the three main reports that have been published, going back to 2012, the report of the Pirate Panel, 2017, the report of the expert panel on concrete blocks, and more recently the defects in apartments, are fundamental reflections on, I suppose, the state of delivery of buildings in Ireland, and they don't paint a pretty picture. I suppose in terms of the cost to the exchequer, in terms of the resultant schemes that were developed by the government, in the order of 250 million has been spent so far on the pirate remediation scheme, and the middle one, is going to be multiples of that. It's going to take a long time to solve, and in the middle of all of that is the homeowner who has been disenfranchised, affected, and lives with the legacy of these failures. The most recent report on the defects in apartments, again, it's an eye-watering number of apartments that are potentially affected, and the resolution to supporting a scheme to bring, I suppose, buildings back into a state of being safe is going to be defined over the coming months. But what's consistent about all of the three reports is that, in general, when something goes wrong, it comes down to the design, product, and workmanship. The report of the defects in apartments would have said that it's not one single cause. It's not just maybe a lack of inspection. It comes down to the involvement of professionals, the supervision by the builder, the competency of everyone involved that has caused one of these failures. But if they're not working in unison with each other, they do result in failures. You'll all be familiar, I suppose, with some of the your day-to-day inspections. It's a consistent task and challenge for you to keep a focus on getting simple things right. The guidance is there, the standards are there, it's getting them executed, implemented on site. And I suppose that we're trying to reduce that risk of failure all along. So back in the last decade, I suppose the regulatory regime was reviewed and identified that the lack of involvement of construction professionals on site and the lack of accountability with respect to building regulations was the main issue, I suppose, in terms of reforms. And bringing us on to the Building Control Amendment Regulations 2014, the Code of Practice, which is very clear in its roles and responsibilities in terms of inspections and accountability and process that supports the regulations. The establishment of the National Building Control and Market Surveillance Office has been, fundamental to trying to deliver that coherent support that's needed for the 31 local authorities as a shared service. Like I say, training events like this to have a consistency of application is fundamental to giving a good public service delivery of building control, and to be able to balance that bureaucracy that can be sometimes associated with building control to making sure that buildings are safe at the end of the day. We touched on this a little bit in the Q&A, I suppose, like that, part of the kind of measures that were identified back in 2011 was also the registration of builders, and we have just got to that point where the Act was published by the Oireachtas in 2022, and the CIF have been designated as the registered body. The board and all of the mechanics that go with establishing that body now are in motion. There is a broad obligation then for those who provide services to which building regulations apply will be on a statutory register from 2025. It's going to start with homeowners or home builders, and then it's going to cascade down to the variety of trades beneath it. But it doesn't stop there either. Commitments within the programme for government do look to further improve the oversight role that the state has to reduce risk of building failures and to enhance the public confidence in the construction sector. There's in Housing for All will have outlined a commitment to be able to establish a building standards regulator, and but it must have that sufficient power, scope, and powers of inspection, enforcement, and to be able to apply a meaningful sanction to, I suppose, to reduce non-compliance. Public tolerance to non-compliance is well and truly exhausted, and like I say, it is seldom a week goes by without a reminder of when things go wrong on building matters. So complementary to that then as well, the Housing for All has committed to re-establishing BRAB, and that was disbanded in 2012. It's provided for under the Building Control Act to provide advice to the Minister in the context of building regulations, but in the establishment of the Building Standards Regulator, an optimal role will be made for the BRAB once that review has been completed. A lot of work has been ongoing in the last number of months in that respect to be able to set out the vision, the scope, and the structure of what that regulator will look like, and we hope to be in a position to conclude on that in the coming weeks and months. So just again, like all I'd say is that there's no one individual that's totally responsible for when things go wrong, and there's a collective responsibility across. We can have the best regulations, the best standards in place, but in general, you know, it really needs the full commitment of those involved, the builders, designers, certifiers, and obviously with a proportionate amount of inspections by the local authority. You know, the regime that the Building Control Market Surveillance Authority has put in place, I suppose the level of being able to have training events like this, to be able to bring people together, to reflect on where we're at, and perhaps where there are potential barriers, where there's common matters that can be shared, we can start whittling down that list and hopefully end up in a better place. And like I say, in the fullness of time, the Building Standards Regulator will be a further support to try and change that, to change matters and support that culture of quality and compliance. So listen, I wish you all the best for the rest of the afternoon. That's my presentation. If, I suppose, within any notifications that we do send out with respect to building standards, and that if you haven't subscribed to building standards at Housing, send them an email, and you can be on our interested parties list. And thank you very much.
Thanks, John. John has another engagement, so we're going to take, if there's a few questions from the floor for John before he goes.